arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So today what we are going to do is a little different. We are going to go through Anunguttara Nikaya, a book of one. Normally we take bigger suttas and we kind of expound on the suttas. But there are a collection of suttas on certain topics. And certain times they are not based on topics also. They are only based on the numerical significance. Say the book of one will have the sayings which has one thing the Buddha wants to explain. So over here, the Buddha has spoken a lot about the mind. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of share with you the book of one from Sutta 21 to Sutta 20. So they, in different ways, the Buddha is saying the importance of the mind. So we'll start with the first sutta, which is the Sutta 1.21. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when undeveloped is so unwieldy as the mind. An developed mind is unwieldy. That means that something which you cannot handle, unwieldy means. Like a sack of potato, if you're carrying a sack of potato, it is very difficult to carry it. But if you are carrying, say, a suitcase, then you will be able to carry the suitcase of the same weight. So in that sense, that if mind is undeveloped, then you will are unable to handle the situations. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when developed is so wieldy as the mind. A developed mind is wieldy. So if your mind is developed, then your mind can be controllable. You will be able to exercise control on the mind. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when undeveloped leads to such great harm as the mind. An undeveloped mind leads to great harm. So the Buddha is saying that that if your mind is not developed, then it will lead to your harm. Students, I do not see even one thing that when developed leads to such great good as the mind. A developed mind leads to good. So in that same way, if this mind is developed, then what would happen is it will lead to your good. So in that sense that the mind when it is undeveloped can lead to harm, but that same mind when it is developed, it leads to great good. Developing your mind is one other way of saying the meditation, to understand how your mind's attention is moving from one thing to another and understanding the right effort. Students, I do not see even one thing that when undeveloped and unmanifested leads to such great harm as the mind. The mind when undeveloped and unmanifested leads to great harm. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when developed and manifested leads to such great good as the mind. The mind when developed and manifested leads to great good. So in this sutta, the Buddha is saying that the mind when it is undeveloped and unmanifested means that you have not manifested the wholesome qualities in it. So that is the unmanifested mind. When you are manifested the wholesome quality, then your mind is developed and you have also manifested the wholesome qualities. That will lead to great good. Student, I do not see even one other thing that when undeveloped and uncultivated leads to such great harm as the mind. The mind when undeveloped and uncultivated leads to great harm. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when developed and cultivated leads to such great good as the mind. The mind when developed and cultivated leads to great good. So again, what do you remain uncultivated and what is cultivated? That is the wholesome state of minds. When it is uncultivated or when it is cultivated, it will give us great good. But when it is uncultivated, it will lead to our harm. Students, I do not see even one other thing when undeveloped and uncultivated brings such suffering as a mind. The mind when undeveloped and uncultivated brings suffering. So over here, the Buddha is also pointing out that the suffering is also the start of the suffering. It starts with the mind. So when the mind is not developed and it is not cultivated, then it will lead to your suffering. And I do not see even one thing that when developed and cultivated brings such happiness as the mind. The mind, when developed and cultivated, brings happiness. So this kind of goes with the Buddha's teaching that when you're suffering, it kind of Buddha is teaching about the suffering and the end of suffering, that is the happiness. So the Buddha is saying that when the mind is undeveloped and uncultivated, it will bring you suffering. But when it is developed and cultivated, then it will bring you happiness. Then the other topic is untamed. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when untamed lead to such great harm as the mind. An untamed mind leads to great harm. The untamed mind can be said to be a mind where you are not using 6R. You are not knowing how your mind's attention is going to one thing to another and how you have to bring it back. So then the mind is not tamed. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when tamed leads to such great good as the mind. A tamed mind leads to great good. But one knows how to tame the mind, means one knows how to recognize the distractions, release, relax, re-smile, return and remain on the object which is wholesome. Then that mind will bring great good. So once a mind is not tamed, then it can give you great harm. But once it is tamed, it will give you great good. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when unguarded leads to such great harm as the mind. An unguarded mind leads to great harm. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when guarded leads to such great good as the mind. A guarded mind leads to great good. A guarded mind is the mind with mindfulness. Mindfulness is knowing how your mind's attention is moving from one thing to another and how that process is impersonal and how we are causing ourselves dukkha and how these things are impermanent. So when you are having a guarded mind, you are having a mind with mindfulness. You are able to do whatever task you are doing with mindfulness. So when that is guarded, then it leads to your good. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when unprotected leads to such great harm as the mind. An unprotected mind leads to great harm. In the same way, when you are not having mindfulness, you are not having the right effort, then your mind is unprotected because you are not knowing where your mind's attention is going. It is going on an unwholesome thing and it stays on the unwholesome things for as long as it wants to. But if you can recognize, release, and use the right effort, then your mind is protected. So I do not see even one other thing that when protected leads to such great good as the mind. A protected mind leads to great good. So when your mind is protected, then it will lead to great good. I do not see even one other thing that when unrestrained leads to such great harm as the mind. An unrestrained mind leads to great harm. So what is the restraint which we are putting? We are putting the restraint of right effort on the mind. When we are recognizing our mind is distracted, we release it. So by releasing that attention from the unwholesome, we are restraining the mind. So when the mind is unrestrained, it will just go on one thought to another thought. And I kind of explained in our retreats that how the mind map is made. The mind map is made through making a circle, and in the circle you can put any topic. You can put a topic of an elephant, then you will have a spoke, and you say the elephant is a royal animal. Then royal animal leads to kings. Then the kings leads to maybe fights, and they use the elephants in fights and everything. So in this way, just thinking about one subject, we can keep on thinking on subjects, different subjects, we can keep on going. In that way, we are not having any kind of control on what is happening. So in that sense, that mind which is there, which is not kind of restrained, will keep on going on its own and lead to harm. I do not see even one other thing that when restrained leads to such great good as the mind. A restrained mind leads to great good. So in the same way, when you are restraining your mind, it will lead to great good. I do not see even one other thing that when untamed, unguarded, unprotected, unrestrained, leads to such great harm as the mind. The mind, when untamed, unguarded, unprotected, unrestrained, leads to great harm. Students, I do not see even one other thing that when tamed, guarded, protected, and restrained, leads to such great good as the mind. The mind, when tamed, guarded, protected, and restrained, leads to great good. So in the same way, the Buddha is summarizing that if it is untamed, unguarded, unprotected, unrestrained, means you are having no idea about what your mind is doing. Your mind is doing and you are going with the mind. Then it will lead to your harm. But when you are, the mind is tamed, guarded, protected, and restrained, then you are recognizing how your mind's attention is moving from one thing to another and how this is an impersonal process. That is the mindfulness definition Bhante Vimala gives us. And that definition of mindfulness also includes the right effort. Because when you recognize your mind is distracted, you release, relax, smile, return, and remain on a wholesome object. So in this way, you will be taming it, guarding it, protecting it, and restraining it. Then this is another topic is spike. Students, suppose a misdirected spike of hill rice or barley were pushed by the hand or foot. It is impossible that it would pierce the hand or the foot and draw blood. For what reason? Because the spike is misdirected. So too, it is impossible that a student with a misdirected mind would pierce ignorance, arouse true knowledge, and realize Nibbana. For what reason? Because the mind is misdirected. So in this way, what is the misdirected spike of rice is, if you take a single rice and you keep it flat on your thumb, and then you press the rice. You can press the rice as much as with the force you want to press. But what would happen is it will not pierce the skin. It will not pierce the skin. In that same way, if you are not using your mind in a proper manner, if it is misdirected, then you will not pierce the ignorance. You will not arouse true knowledge. You will not realize Nibbana. In that is the reason Bhante Vimala, Sister Khema, myself, all the teachers which are there, which are teaching, are very kind of insistent that you learn it in a correct manner. That is the reason we are very much insistent that we should not change the words which are used by Bhante Vimala. Bhante Vimala has researched those words and used the same words which are able to kind of be absorbed, can be understood, and by absorbing and understanding those words of the Dhamma, you will be able to pierce the ignorance, arouse the knowledge, and realize Nibbana. So that's the reason you have to not misdirect your mind. Suppose a well-directed spike of hill rice or barley were pressed by the hand or foot. It is possible that it would pierce the hand or foot and draw blood. For what reason? Because the spike is well-directed. So too, it is possible that a student with a well-directed mind would pierce ignorance, arouse energy, and realize Nibbana. For what reason? Because the mind is well-directed. So if a rice is kept in a horizontal manner and then pressed, then what would happen is it may kind of pierce the skin, and it may also draw blood. But it is showing you not to kind of draw blood from you, but to show that when it is directed in a correct manner, then it is effective. In the same way, if your mind is directed in the correct manner, then it kind of penetrates and pierces the ignorance, arouses true knowledge, and you realize Nibbana. Here, students, having encompassed a mentally corrupted person's mind with my own mind, I understand that if this person were to die at this time, he would be deposited in hell as if brought there. For what reason? because his mind is corrupted. It is because of mental corruption that with the breakup of the body, after death, some beings here are reborn in the plane of misery, in a bad destination, in the lower world, in hell. So over here, the Buddha is kind of pointing out that if your mind is not directed well, and your mind is corrupted, then the Buddha can encompass the other's mind with his own mind and say that this person, his mind is corrupted and he will be reborn in hell if he were to pass away currently. So in this way, by having a mind which is corrupted can lead to your harm, in the sense that it will lead to you going into the hell realms. So that is very important. Students, suppose a well-directed, students having encompassed a mentally placid person's mind with my own mind, I understand that if this person were to die at this time, he would be deposited in heaven as if brought there. For what reason? Because his mind is placid. It is because of his mental placidity that with the breakup of the body after death, some beings here are reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. So if the mind leads one to hell, then mind can lead one to heaven. So there is no other entity required. In this, it is made very clear that it is our mind which kind of leads us to the hell realms. It is our mind which leads us to the heaven or hell. It's our mind itself which is leading us. There is no external being, there is no external force, there is no external reason for our getting our destination, which is the hell or heaven. We are responsible for that. For that, we have to have a mind which is placid. That means that the mind which is calm. When is the mind calm? When we are doing the correct things. We are not letting our mind be unrestrained. We are not letting our mind be untamed. We are keeping an eye on our mind. We are keeping an eye on our mind's attention moving from one thing to another. If it is going to an unwholesome state, we recognize it. We release, we relax, re-smile and return back and remain on an wholesome object. So when we are developing our mind, then we are developing our path to happiness. We are developing our path to the heavens. Here, students, suppose there were a pool of water that was cloudy, turbid and muddy. Then a man with good sight, standing on the bank, could not see shells, gravel and pebbles and shoals of fish swimming around and resting. For what reason? Because the water is cloudy. So too, it is impossible for a student with a cloudy mind to know his own good, the good of others, or the good of both, or to realize a superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. For what reason? Because his mind is cloudy. So the superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones are the one of the four paths, that is Sotapanna, Sagdagami, Anagami or Arahant. Those are the superhuman distinction of knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. Only the noble ones are the ones who have attained the path. So why is the mind cloudy, turbid and muddy? Because the mind is not tamed. It has not been purified. It has not been understood. When you are not understanding what the mind's attention is moving and how your attention is going through unwholesome things, then you will just keep on thinking on those unwholesome things, and unwholesome things will kind of make your mind waver, make your mind restless, and all the five hindrances are coming through because you are not keeping the precepts. When the precepts are not kept, then you are facing with the five hindrances. The five hindrances clouded the mind. They muddy the water or the muddy the mind. So when your mind is not placid, it is not calm, it is not clear, then what would happen is you are unable to see how your attention is moving from one thing to another, how it is impersonal and how it is causing you dukkha, and how this is an impermanent process of arising and passing away. So you are unable to see because your mind is not clear. Suppose there were a pool of water that was clear, serene, limpid. Then a man with good sight, standing on the bank, could see shells, gravel, and pebbles, and shoals of fish swimming around and resting. For what reason? Because the water is limpid. It is clear. The water is clear. So too, it is possible for a student with a clear mind to know his own good, the good of others, and the good of both, and to realize a superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. For what reason? Because his mind is clear. So when your mind is clear is when you are able to take away your unwholesome states of mind and bring it and replace it with the wholesome states of mind. When you are doing it continually, then what would happen is you will experience a very calm state of mind. That calm state of mind, you are able to see what is arising and how you are making it personal. You are taking it personally when after it arises and making it into something. When you are able to see clearly that this is what has arisen is impersonal, and it has come on its own, and it stays on its own and goes on its own, then you realize that it is also impermanent. And where are we creating the dukkha? We are creating the dukkha when we try to hold on to something which is nice, but it is impermanent and it goes away. That will create a dukkha. Or if something unwholesome comes, a pain comes, and we want to get rid of it, we have aversion to it. When we have aversion to it, we push back on it. When we push back on it, we are pushing back on reality, and that also creates dukkha. So by looking at our mind, by seeing what is happening, especially in meditation, we are able to understand how the mind can be clear or how it can be muddied. Students, just as a sandalwood is declared to be the best of trees with respect to malleability and wildiness, so too I do not see even one other thing that when developed and cultivated is so malleable and wieldy as a mind. A developed and cultivated mind is malleable and wieldy. So again, the Buddha is coming to the same concepts of being able to handle the mind, being able to control the mind. When a mind is developed and cultivated, it is malleable and wieldy. Students, I do not see even one other thing that changes so quickly as the mind. It is not easy to give a simile for how quickly the mind changes. So anybody who is in meditation will recognize that how when you are there on the subject of meditation, object of meditation, and then your mind is there on something else, you are there on a distraction. How that can happen so quickly. So the mind can change very quickly. But that also means that when there is an unwholesome state, then a wholesome state also can come very quickly. When you can recognize, release, relax, and re-smile, then you have a wholesome state of mind you are bringing in. And then you are going to a wholesome object of meditation or whatever work you are doing in the daytime. So that way, your mind can change quickly from the good state of mind to bad, but from the bad state of mind to good also, it can change quickly. So that is also an advantage you can take care when you are using the right effort. Luminous student is the mind, but it is defiled by causal defilement. How is the mind luminous? Luminous means that the mind is clear of defilements. But how it is defiled is by what is the causal things, which are the karmic, your karmic acts you have done in the past. As we have seen in the other sutta of Anguttara Nikaya, where I show the origination of ignorance. So the origination of ignorance starts with not paying good attention to or not meeting good people, and then not hearing the Dhamma. Then it goes through further, it goes to the stage of not able to put your attention on unwholesome things. When you are not able to put attention on wholesome things, not able to put attention on wholesome things, then you are not having control on your senses. When you don't have control on your senses, you have wrong things which you do with body, speech, and mind. When you are doing that, means that you are breaking precepts. When you are breaking precepts, then the 5 hindrances come. So in that way, your mind is getting defiled by your karmic actions. Your mind is getting defined. Luminous students is the mind, and it is freed from causal defilements. That is, when you are using this same process of karmic action, that is volitional action, then by keeping your attention clear on your mind's attention, where it is going, then when unwholesome things come, you recognize, release, relax, re-smile, and return back. Then what happens is you have control on your senses. When you have control on your senses, you are not breaking precepts. You are not doing bad things with your body, speech, and mind. When you are not doing that, then what would happen is you would have a mind free of defilements. When the mind is free of defilements, it will also be free of ignorance. So in this way, the mind also develops through the step of our karmic actions. So if all your hindrances are based in your karmic action of the past, then all your progress is also based on your karmic action in the present. So the Bhante Vimalansi used to say that you cannot control what has happened in the past, but what you can do is have control on the present. When you control, exercise your control, that is the right effort in the present, then your future is also taken care of, because you directly don't have access to the future. But when you are taking the correct actions in the present, then you will ensure that the future is bright. And when you are having your mind, which is clear, which is kind of wieldy, which is under your control, then you will be able to have a future which you can direct your mind, and that place your mind will go. So whatever you think and ponder upon frequently becomes the inclination of your mind. So by learning the right effort and learning how to use this right effort in your daily life, we can progress and clear the defilements of the mind and make the mind clear. And then we will be able to see how the mind's attention is moving and how this is working. So this is the kind of about 30 small suttas of the Buddha in Anguttara Nikaya Book of 1 about mind. There are many others also. So we'll kind of have the groups of suttas which we'll kind of do in the future. So in this way, we can cover those suttas which we are normally not covered because they are very small. So we will continue this practice, and you can give us feedback if you like this and you want to see more of them. Then we will have more of them arranged for you. So is there any questions as of now? Any questions regarding those suttas which you just read?
Speak about luminous mind, please.
Yes.
Luminous mind with the causal defilements. Yes. That means it is of some fetters.
Some fetters, correct. Those are the fetters kind of can come up, which can defile the mind. So that has been kind of explained in the another sutta very clearly, that if you are not meeting noble people, you are not hearing the noble Dhamma. When you are not hearing the noble Dhamma, you are not creating, developing faith. When you are not developing faith, you are not putting your attention correctly. When you are not putting your attention correctly, then mindfulness and clear comprehension is not developed. When mindfulness and clear comprehension is not developed, then you are not putting, you are not controlling your senses. That is eyes, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. You are not having control on that. When you are not putting your attention on the senses correctly, then you are making unwholesome actions with your body, speech, and mind. When that is made, then those 5 hindrances come. And that 5 hindrances becomes the basis of your ignorance. So in this way, the whole process happens because you are not knowing, that ignorance about the actual correct way of putting attention on your mind.
So it is not a cultivated mind.
Yes.
It is not a cultivated mind. You mean to say?
It is not a cultivated mind. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Is there any other questions?
Bante, Murli here from Bangalore. Yeah, this is regarding about the faith. You have in the faith also, is there like you go and idol is there where you have a lot of faith on that. And coming back to Buddhist faith, what is the difference, Bante, with regarding that faith? You say Shraddha, right?
Yeah, Shraddha is, see, there are two kinds of Shraddha. It is in the right process you are keeping the faith. So Buddha says that there are two approaches to kind of developing your mind. One is the investigation process. So somebody comes to investigate. When somebody comes to investigate, what he does is he gives ear. He listens to the good Dhamma. When he listens to the good Dhamma, then he kind of develops faith. When he develops faith, then he kind of does practice. When he does practice, he develops further faith. And then what would happen is he learns more. And when he learns more and he practices more, then he progresses in the Dhamma. Then he has the knowledge and vision firsthand. So then there is no need for faith. Then the other way of coming is also through faith. One kind of meets the Buddha's teaching. He develops the faith in the Buddha's teaching. Because he has developed the faith in the Buddha's teaching, he listens to the, he gives ear, he listens to the Dhamma. Then when he listens to the Dhamma, then he has, his faith is getting more stronger. When his faith is getting more stronger, he does practice. And by practicing, he gets results. And when he gets results, he has knowledge and vision. So in this both ways, faith is used as a means of entry, or the investigation is used as a means of entry, but you have to listen to the correct Dhamma. That is the reason it starts with meeting the noble ones and hearing the noble Dhamma. And that is the faith which we have, is in the faith of the noble Dhamma. So that is the correct object you are developing your faith in. You can have faith in many other things, and that will lead to the quality of the thing you have faith in. So somebody has faith in the government, say, but then he will kind of have his all outlook and everything will be on the politics and all these things, because his mind is directed toward that thing. But that faith is not the faith which are called a general faith, but the faith which is developed by hearing the good Dhamma and meeting with the noble people. So that is how this faith is a different quality to it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Bante, thank you. Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu. Yes. Is there any other question?
Nami Bante.
Yes.
Who is a noble person?
See, noble person is defined technically by in the suttas as the person who has attained one of the paths. That is Sotapanna, Sakdagami, Anagami, and Arahant. They are the noble people.
Okay, okay. So only bhikkhus can be noble.
No, not necessarily a bhikkhus can be noble, because one in Vachakuta Sutta, Buddha was asked, is there any bhikkhus who are Sotapanna? The Buddha says that there are more than 500 bhikkhus which are Sotapanna. There are more than 500 bhikkhunis. There are more than 500 lay people, then more than 500 lay women. And the same thing he says for the Sakdagami and Anagami. Only in Arahant, the Buddha only mentions bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. That more than 500 bhikkhus and more than 500 bhikkhunis are arahants. So Buddha does not mention arahants for a lay person, but there are many other instances also in the sutta where a lay person is a anagami. One of the or other reason the person is kind of has obligations to the family. In one sutta, I think Buddha Vipassi or Buddha Kasapa, his student was a anagami. And he did not become a monk, but he lived a monk's life. But he wanted to support his blind father and mother. So there were nobody else to kind of take care of his blind father and mother. So what happened is, what he knew was to make pots. So he used to go to a river and keep the receptacle of on the riverbed, where he knew that the bank will fall and the mud will fall in the receptacle. So he would not dig, because while digging, he may be inadvertently killing worms or something like that. So he would not dig. So he would go there and collect the mud. Then he would come to his house, make pots out of it, and keep the pots for display. The people who came would pick up the pots and put the money in a basket. He would not price the pots. He would say, whatever you like, you can put it in the basket. So he lived a very frugal life, and he was an anagami, but he never became a monk because he wanted to support his blind mother and father. Then there is one other instance in the time of the Buddha. There is an anagami layperson. The Buddha even sends bhikkhus to learn from that layperson. So the process of development of the mind can happen from Sotapanna to Sakdagami to Anagami for anybody. If it is a monk, nun, a lay person or lay woman, anybody can attain those levels.
Okay, Bhante. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Kiran, you wanted to ask a question?
Yes, Bhante, I have questions. So my question is, when in daily life we dealing with the difficult people, so the mind can lead to the great harm.
I'm sorry, the voice is very slow over here. Can you repeat the question?
Okay, in daily life, if we dealing with difficult people, sometimes our mind leads to the great harm. So my question is, first, should we avoid that person and don't have any don't have any association with those people? And the second question, if we 6R, what is the return here in daily life to deal with difficult people? Because when I try to bring the may I be happy and ask, yeah, you get what I mean, right?
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. See, in daily life, there are many people we are not able to avoid. That's the reason Buddha gives the simile of the saw, where the Buddha says that even if your hand is being cut, and you should not bring up a hate in your heart. You should not bring aversion in your heart. You should bring metta, karuna, mudita, and upekha for that person and all the other persons. So one thing is to keep your mind always on the metta feeling or upekha when it is needed. One second. This last stage of flu is there. I still have this phlegm which is going on. So when you are doing 6 hours, what you are basically doing is you are understanding, you are recognizing that your mind is there on an unwholesome thought. That thought may be of aversion. That thought may be of ill will. When you recognize your thought is there on the unwholesome, then what you do is you release your thought or release your attention from that unwholesome thought, which is even aversion is there or ill will is there. Then you relax. That is, when your mind is moving, there is an amount of craving which is there. That's the reason it has moved to aversion and ill will. So you release your over here, the head area and the body. You release the tension from the body and you bring up something wholesome, which is a smile. Then you get back to your attention to, say, speaking to that person. So then again, you bring your attention to that person and start sending metta. So in this way, you are using the 6 hours. You are using the 6 hours of continuously understanding that when your mind is going away to unrelated topic, and then you recognize, release, relax, smile, and return back. So if you keep on doing that, then you will be able to be more and more automatic in this process. Whenever you recognize your there is a tension and tightness building up in your body, then still that time you will be able to relax. Because there is certain things which happens before your mind's attention moves. That is the craving that shows up as tension and tightness in the body. So if you are able to do it well, then at the time of tension and tightness, you will be able to release, relax, and return back to re-smile and return back to your task. So you cannot always avoid people. If you can avoid people who are kind of being mean to you or not being wholesome with you, then you can do that. But when it is unavoidable, then you have to understand that the person is also operating from ignorance. The person is also having limitations because of not understanding. So that is the reason you have to have compassion for the person. That person does not know how much kind of pain and suffering they are creating for themselves. So you should be having compassion for the person. You should have metta for that person, and you should also keep upekha. That is the balance of mind. Because there is aversion, you can balance aversion with upekha, that is equanimity. With equanimity, you try to balance your mind. So you should continuously do this in your daily life. And when you're doing this in your daily life, it becomes at one point of time automatic. As soon as certain things arises, you recognize, release, relax, re-smile, and just get back to whatever task you are doing. So you have to do it continuously. It's a training process. And you should not blame yourself for the thoughts which arises. So one thing I have seen many kind of teachers also you should not even have a thought of ill will. That is not the thing the Buddha is saying. The Buddha is not saying that you should not have a thought. The Buddha is saying that you should not pay attention to that thought. You should not continue thinking those thoughts. So Buddha is not saying you should not have a thought of ill will. If you read carefully the wordings the Buddha is using, the Buddha is using the word that once that thought comes, he abandons it. Okay, he lets go of it. He kind of makes it kind of breaks away from it. So there are other many words the Buddha is using. The Buddha is kind of recognizing that the arising of the thought, you may not always have the mindfulness that before the thought arises, you are able to recognize. Certain stage of meditation, a person can kind of recognize before the thought comes up, before there is a, when there is a tension and tightness, or then there is a contact, the person can recognize. And when that recognizes, he can release it. But not everybody can be at that stage of mental development. So once you recognize the thought, you release it. You relax, re-smile, and return back. So you don't blame yourself for having unwholesome thoughts, or don't blame yourself for having ill will or aversion. But you have a volition over here. The volition is you can recognize your mind is at ill will, of aversion, of hatred, or anger. And then you can release that state of mind and relax, re-smile, bring something wholesome, and come back to a wholesome task. So that way you can keep it going, keep on going your practice in the day. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Bante, it answered my question. And
Okay.
I also amazed with how like people can be grouping like good people group with good people with bad people, like they're grouped by nature. I was amazed and I recognized that just yesterday.
So you have to be careful.
Yeah,
That is the reason Buddha also says that Buddha also says that you have to find good friends in holy life. The whole of the holy life is good friends. Okay, Kalyana Mittas. But if you do not find it, then go alone. That the Buddha says. It is better to have no friends rather than have some bad friend.
Yeah, and also I feel that family play important roles to make people be good or be bad. Really, I was really shocked how the teaching in the family can be like a great effect for that family and for the society as well.
Correct. Yeah, that is also a very good point, that once you are in a family, then your family kind of can have a profound effect on your life. You have to be careful interacting with your family also. Certain people are kind of really good at handling interpersonal relationship, and certain people are not. So you have to be careful in all states of minds. Only thing which we can control is we can control our mind by having restraint on our mind, by knowing the right effort, by knowing the way to direct your mind to a wholesome subject. That is what we have in our hand. So we should put our attention on that. So is there any other questions? Do you have any questions?
No, Bhante, I thought your talk was very, very thorough in its explanation. So thank you.
Okay. Do you like to add something?
I think the only comment I would make extra, I think, would be around faith, Sada, and understanding that Sada can also be confidence. And so in the investigation route, we develop confidence because of our experience. And that's another expression of that, of Sada.
Yes. Shraddha can also be confidence. So that is a very good kind of point, that when you have confidence in something, you will be able to practice that. And the Buddha's teaching is there to be practiced. It is not to be just learned, not to be just heard. The Buddha is teaching something which is practical to be done. So the right effort is not something which can be just read. Once you do it, only then you will understand that what is recognized, what is relaxed, re-smile, and what is bringing it to the wholesome object. So by doing, you learn. So by doing anything, you gain confidence. Like riding a bike. Once you don't know, but once you are on the bike and you are falling few times, you are creating the confidence. Oh, I can pedal one pedal, I can do it before my bike. But when he understands I can pedal one pedal and have balance, then he kind of gets of confidence that ultimately I'll be able to do it. And then he can do maybe 2 pedals, and then he falls, and then he does 3 or 4 pedals. And then slowly he kind of will remain on the cycle for a long time. So in that same way, the confidence which is being built can kind of take you forward. So that's a very good point.
And I think the 6 R's are a wonderful exercise in building confidence, because it begins to show that this practice can be, as the Buddha said, immediately effective. Once we've experienced the 6 R's, releasing tension, releasing craving, the mind settles back, and the engagement that we had with whatever that distraction was, it just isn't there. And that, I think that's a wonderful experience to build confidence as well.
Yeah, very good. Sadhu, sadhu. Is there any other question? Then we can share merits. I think we'll share merits. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.